Welcome to your key discovery point. I am Brett Burney from Nextpoint, joined by Doug Austin of eDiscovery today. Doug, today we might file this one under AI hallucinations strike again. But this story in particular has a couple of additional awkward and ironic layers to it. It's good to see you post this a couple of days ago.
Yes, thanks, Brett, and Happy New Year, because this is our first
Happy
one
New
of the
Year.
year.
Yes.
Yes, the AI hallucinations in case filings are getting almost to a point where they're not
Wow.
newsworthy anymore.
I know.
But this one is newsworthy because this one is a little bit different. It involves actually an expert on AI and misinformation submitting a declaration in a case where he used GPT-4o to help him write the declaration, which, of course, unfortunately for him, had fake citations in it and also an error in a list of
Uh-oh.
authors.
Right.
So that happened. That filing, I think, happened last November. I think they determined pretty quick what happened, and they submitted a motion to amend the declaration,
Right.
which last Friday, the court, Minnesota District Judge Laura Provinzino, ruled on, and honestly, she really didn't beat around the bush. I think she
Right.
pretty much called him to task. And one of the things, of course, she pointed out, and at the beginning of it, is the irony, because it is
Yeah.
ironic that basically a credentialed expert on the dangers of AI and misinformation, and I like how she put it, has fallen victim to the siren call of relying too heavily on AI.
The
Um, uh,
siren call. That's great.
Yes, which is very interesting. And of course, one of the things that she points out is that the court adds its voice to the growing chorus of courts around the country saying
Yeah.
verify AI-generated content in legal submissions. Which, of course, we're seeing again and again. And one of the things that really occurs to me about this is a two-word or two-letter problem, but the two words or two letters aren't artificial intelligence or AI. They're quality control or QC.
Yes,
This is
exactly.
the issue. People are trusting the AI too much and getting themselves in a pickle. Even somebody who ought to know better about what AI's capabilities are. Notably, one of the things that she pointed out, if you go down a little bit more
Yep.
yeah, right. Let's see. Yes, right there was, or actually a little bit above that,
Oh, there we go. Okay.
where she, because this sentence really says it all. When she says Professor Hancock's citation to fake AI-generated sources in his declaration, even with his helpful, thorough, and plausible explanation, shatters his credibility with the court.
Yeah.
So
Ouch.
even though she acknowledged, and then the plaintiffs acknowledged that he's a notable expert,
Yeah.
she still chose to deny the motion to amend the declaration and accept the declaration. So, and she was also ruling on another declaration which she accepted that didn't have the issues.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a major lesson learned,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
certainly one of the things that you have to be careful of when it comes to using these programs. They generate such great sounding text and
Yeah.
great information a lot of the time that you have to be careful, and especially you have to be careful when you're doing things that are involve citing the sources, because that's
Right.
one of one of the common threads about all of these is that it's citing to sources that may or may not be true. You always have to check those.
If I'm not mistaken, I see because you linked to the story in the Stanford Daily website as well.
Another irony, right?
Or
Yeah.
another
So,
irony where they're covering it like at the end of this one
right.
story here where the students are in the class from this professor where he's talking about citations in this. And then the last even layer here, Doug, if I'm not mistaken, this was a case about the use of deep fakes to thwart elections, I believe. So yeah,
Right.
that's another kind of a weird layer that goes all in there. And I'm just going to say, to underscore what you said, it sounds like the professor and the party, recognize what happened fairly early. The professor wrote this I guess sort of an apology, or like, here's what happened, a declaration, but he said something along the lines of, I still stand behind the substantive points that I made. And I think, like you said, the court recognized that, and the judge even says, to be sure, the court does not believe Professor Hancock intentionally cited to fake sources, but like you said, they've lost credibility then at this point.
Right.
So anyway, that the key discovery point there, obviously, Doug, you've already alluded to it a couple of times, is you got to check your work. I know you and I talked about this several times. It's almost like, how can we still be saying this, because there's so many examples out there? But I feel like I want to get a hat now that just says verify your AI, right? I mean, these are great tools that you could use, but you got to verify the AI when you use it. Yeah.
So
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean, we see so many lawyers doing it. And last year I wrote a post where I said, are we going to continue to see this happen? And I noted, I
Right.
basically looked up the fact that there's 1.3 million lawyers in the US. And even if 1/10 of 1% of them, does
Oh,
this, yeah, and even, 10% of those submit filings, that's still several hundred that are likely to not observe best practices. So
yeah.
that's one of the things. And now, of course, we can say, well, that's just the lawyers. What about pro se parties? What about experts? Because we've seen a couple of
Exactly.
examples of
Right.
both. So really now we're up to 300 million people in the US who could do this, potentially do this. And,
Right.
there's going to be just some that are not going to get it. So I think it's just one of those things we're going to have to accept is going to continue to be an issue for some time to come, just as people have not QC'd their work in a variety of other ways over the
Yeah,
years.
that's true. That's true. Well, you'll keep covering it. I always look to you. I remember that story that you alluded to, and I thought, wow, that's Doug doing some calculations there. But anyway, I'm glad you still cover this. I'll make sure that the link to your story is in the show notes, so that you can make sure you follow eDiscovery today. And at Nextpoint, we actually have a whole Nextpoint law group that takes care of services. If you need any kind of some help or some extra pair of eyes, or folks that are a little more familiar and comfortable with using the technology, you can go to nextpoint.com/eDiscovery-services, and we'll be happy to help you out as there. Your eDiscovery point today, verify your AI, Doug. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Brett, and thanks, everybody.